All right, hello everyone. This is Warrior Woman 91, and welcome to the Renegade Millennials. Yes, I am outside, and that's really exciting for me. It's very loud and noisy, and hopefully you guys can all hear me. So this is our last episode of the year, and it has definitely been quite a year. I want to start off by thanking everyone who has watched the show for the past year or participated in the show. We had some really great guests: Ben Shapiro, Alicia Krause, Antonio Okafor, Ali Stuckey. And I also want to thank some of the regular guests we've had. Amanda is here, and I really enjoyed having her on the show as many times as we've had her, and Aaron Bandler, Ariel Davidson, Kyle Thompson, Elliot Hamilton, Harry Kachatrian, and of course Parda Saleh. All of you guys are great. I know I'm not getting to all the names, but I just wanted to send a thank you. We've been doing this now 2 years, and you guys have been great for coming on the show and making it the success that it's been, and people actually watch it, so that's kind of fun. So we have a great group of guests coming on today. Amanda Prestigiacomo from the Daily Wire, and Frank Camp is a new guest, but he's also from the Daily Wire. So we're very excited to have Frank here today. And then we will be having Courtney Kirchoff from Louder with Crowder at the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be, I'm a huge fangirl of Courtney, and she's a lot of fun on Twitter. So definitely stay tuned for that part of the show. So as always, all death threats, memes, and marriage proposals should be directed to the comment section, where I'll be sure not to read them. And any questions you may have, please send to my Twitter account at WarriorWoman91. And if at all possible, I'll try to answer them at the end of the show, but it doesn't seem like we usually do that. But try anyway, because there's always a first time for these things. So let's get started with the political discussion. For our first topic, we're going to discuss the very crucial case that was argued before the Supreme Court last Tuesday, known as the Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. And I totally geek out over the legal court case stuff, so that's why we're doing this first. The facts of the case are that two gay men requested a cake be made for their wedding, and the owner, Jack Phillips, refused to make the cake based on religious grounds. The gay couple sued under anti-discrimination law. So the first question goes to Amanda: does Jack Phillips' right to the free expression of his religion overrule anti-discrimination law in this case?
It should, because it's not. It shouldn't be a case about discrimination at all. He's not discriminating against this gay couple because they're gay. He would happily, so he has served gay people before. It's not they happen to be gay and then I'm not going to serve you because you're gay, because of your identity. That's not the case. The case is that they came in and they wanted a wedding cake for their gay marriage, and as a conservative Christian, he doesn't want to participate in that event. It's against his religious precepts. He should not be compelled to do that. And this should go across the board, just like artistic or First Amendment expression in general. Like, for instance, if somebody wanted him to make a cake that said, go Nazis, or, Hail Hitler, if he didn't want to do that, he shouldn't be forced to do that. And, like, where is the line? Like, right? Like, you can't, compel certain speech and whatever you deem offensive, who deems what offensive, etc. So it's a really, it seems very cut and dry. This is not someone who's being discriminated against because they happen to be gay. This is somebody's First Amendment right to be allowed to, use his artistic expression in any way he sees fit. It's even beyond religion to me. It's a First Amendment issue, cut and dry.
Now, you kind of answered this question just a little bit already, but I want to kind of play devil's advocate here for a moment. How is turning away customers based on their sexual orientation or due to religious objections different from turning away a customer for their racial makeup, for example?
Right, it's not. That's kind of my argument here, is that it's not. He said he would serve the gay couple. It really has nothing to do with that, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it is black skin or they're gay or what have you. It's not the identity. It's using your artistic expression, your First Amendment rights, however you see fit. And then also, I mean, you can even take that argument a step further. And if you want to look at like civil rights movements and such, the free market does a lot to kind of curb that. So instead of having the government, not that I'm against this or whatever, let's say the government is like totally out of everything. If there's a baker who won't serve, orange people or black people or whatever, gay people or conservatives, okay, then the baker across the street will, and they'll get the business. So it is about the free market, honestly. And some people are going to do nasty things, and that's life. But where do you draw the line? Where do you cut off someone's First Amendment rights? You can't. You can't compel. The government cannot compel, or should not compel, anybody to do anything. And now we take it to its purest, even though that's not what this case is even about. It's just, you know, basically First Amendment stuff. But if you take it to its purest form, I don't think the government should be involved in it at all. It should be a free market type of situation.
So Frank, does a customer have the right to force businesses to service them?
No, and that's the assumption that most people are under now, is that a business has to serve you, and currently under certain kind of cultural norms, that is the case. A business is compelled to serve you, but in a free market, nobody to provide their services to anybody. Anybody should be able to refuse service to anybody, and anybody should be able to go to a different business if they don't like the service or lack of service being provided. Any kind of business, whether it be a cake shop or anywhere else.
It should be noted that the Masterpiece Cake Shop business has been severely damaged due to this conflict. I think it was Ben Shapiro that wrote the piece reporting that the company has lost 40% of their business and over half of their employees. Back to Frank, do you think that these are just consequences for a person who refuses to serve a customer? What are your thoughts on kind of the hit that the company has taken financially?
The hit that they've taken is honestly a result of people trashing them, and a result of them, people not knowing to them. So in a sense, it's kind of the free market, but in another sense, it's the outsized media attention on it that is, you know, pummeling them into this. So it's they don't deserve it, but it's a little bit of both working at the same time. So it's unfair that they're being focused on, but at the same time, it's kind of the nature of the beast in this instance.
Now, Amanda, what do you think the consequences for free speech and free expression will be if the Supreme Court rules against this cake shop?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a really dangerous precedent. It could be really, really dangerous if, I mean, not that we haven't seen this before. We're so far gone. But it would set a really dangerous precedent where anybody can be compelled to do anything. I mean, if you just look at Canada, for instance, I mean, it's coming here, and then I know we're going to talk about pronouns in a second, but speech, again, is being compelled. Like, you have to call somebody by whatever pronoun they decide on their terms, and if you don't, it's a crime. Like, it's actual illegal. So we're seeing this in Canada, and it's just going to kind of drip into us here, and especially if this case goes the other way. Which I'm hopeful it won't, but yeah, it could set a really dangerous precedent. And of course, you know, religious groups. I mean, the left is so good at mobilizing and targeting conservatives. They do it at like this ground level that conservatives are going to be targets, and conservative establishments are going to be targets, and it's going to be really dangerous stuff. I mean, this is important. It was the most important we've seen in a long time, and I think that's exactly right. It's really terrifying.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the precedent aspect, because, I mean, people can just come to the Daily Wire. I mean, under a precedent like this, people could come to the Daily Wire and say, we want you to run this piece for us. And we would say, oh, no, we don't want to run this piece because it doesn't align with our values. And then we'd get sued. You know, you didn't run our piece, so you're discriminating against us because you disagree with us. So, and it must be because we're gay or we're whatever it is. Or even, that's not even the best example necessarily, but if you rule in this case for this scenario, then it doesn't, the slippery slope just continues to slide in the more extreme direction. More and more people are going to be able to say, well, I can compel you to do this now, or the government can compel you to do that now. Mm-hmm. So I guess this question is kind of for both of you. We'll start with Frank, though. Do you think that it's likely that the Supreme Court rules in favor of the cake shop in this case? Or do you think that they're going to, you know, rule basically inside of government tyranny?
Well, history shows, in terms of this specific court balance, we know where, you know, the more conservative justices are going to fall. We know where the leftist justices are like, and as usual, it ends up coming down to what Anthony Kennedy is going to do. From what I've seen, and which is not very much, but during oral arguments, Kennedy seemed to be leaning toward the cake shop in terms of freedom of expression. This whole thing will pivot on Kennedy. It is possible. It's completely possible that some of the more leftist judges, Sotomayor or Keegan or whatever, will fall into the conservative camp on this one. It's unlikely, but it's possible. Everything will turn on Kennedy. I think ultimately, I think it will be ruled in favor of the cake shop. But I could be wrong.
So, as do I. I think it's going to go that way. It would be really terrifying if it didn't. But I would say like 80% sure it's going to go in favor, and especially just because the precedent that it would set. I mean, it would change a lot of things. I mean, this would really be it wouldn't even be a slippery slope. Like, we'd be at the bottom, and like anything could happen. So I think even these more leftist judges see that this is a First Amendment issue. I mean, screw the ACLU is clearly on the side of the gay couple. They're so useless. But this is clearly a First Amendment issue, and I think it's going to go the way of Master's Cake Shop.
Yeah, it is. My thought is, though, that the leftist judges must realize that if the precedent is set that we can compel a conservative Christian to do something, then also the federal government could compel a leftist business to, I don't know, participate in a church service or something that they don't want to do. It's a double-edged sword. If you compel one group to do something, then you're setting the precedent for all other groups to be able to be forced to do things they don't want to do. And it is kind of like the Steven Crowder video where he did go into a Muslim bakery and asked them to make him a gay wedding cake, and they refused. And there was no backlash for those bakeries. And there shouldn't be. They should be able to practice their religion just as much as Christian bakeries should be able to turn away customers that they don't want to cater their weddings or whatever services
they know who will be targeted and who won't be. You know what I mean? Like, the conservatives don't do this sort of thing. Like, they know that this is going to be an attack on conservatives. So, but you're 100% right. I mean, this is a double-edged sword. This goes both ways, and you have to make that Trump cake. You're gonna have to do that, whatever. But they don't look at it that way because they're never the targets. You know, like I said, conservatives don't do that sort of thing. This is like the left is so activist. They're so, they're ever on the ground. And I know maybe we should be like that too. But they definitely, see it as it's going to attack Christian conservatives. They're only going to go after that Muslim bakery. They won't, but they'll go after the Christians. And
right.
Yeah. But you're 100% right though.
So yes, I absolutely am. So unless there was anything that anybody wanted to weigh in on that subject any further, we can move on to the next one. Frank, did you have anything to follow up with that? Or
I did. I think it's interesting that everyone is coming at this case by conflating two things. They're conflating the unwillingness of Phillips to participate by creating the act of a participatory business like a florist or a baker or a caterer, and the refusal of service based on simple sexual orientation or race or whatever. Those two things are very separate issues, and what's being argued right now is that a participatory business should be allowed to refuse to engage in this kind of activity. Not necessarily any business should be able to refuse customers. I think those two issues are very important to be distinguished from each other.
It's a great point.
I'd argue that all of it should be allowed, just like but Frank's exactly right. That those are two separate issues that people are complaining 100%. They're not being turned away because they're gay. They're being turned away because they want to participate in a gay ceremony because of his religious beliefs. That's
yeah. That is a fantastic point. And speaking of fascism, we're going to move on to the Steven Crowder video released where he invited people to sit down with him and attempt to change his mind. I really love, by the way, I just really love the Change My Mind series he's been doing. Basically, he sits down with a table and he invites people to come and change his mind on a really controversial issue, whether it's abortion or gun control, and now it's pronouns. And so this is the topic that I'm sure is going to get me in trouble just sitting on the streets of LA doing this, but if I get shot, then Amanda, you can take over the Renegade Millennials.
Cross his fingers.
One of the people that tried to convince Steven Crowder of that there are more than two genders. This was the topic of conversation, that there were more than two genders, whether there were more than two genders. So one of the people that sat down with Crowder got very angry and said that misgendering her as a female instead of a gender binary was an act of violence. And this is textbook fascism, I would say. So we're gonna start this one off with Frank. Is this person correct that an act of violence is to refer to someone with their biological pronoun?
No, for multiple reasons, but the main one being that speech isn't violence. So,
what a crazy idea.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, speech isn't violence. And what I think is kind of the more ridiculous aspect of that whole conversation was when she said continually, this is an act of violence, an act of violence, an act of violence. And Steven Crowder would say, well, then if it's an act of crime, and then she would say, no, that's not what I'm saying. So if it's an act of violence but not a crime, then how would you punish it? Okay, it's such a thing, but there's so little logic in this area. They don't think that far ahead. They don't think that far in advance.
Exactly.
So, Amanda, do you think it's fair to require that people adhere to these pronouns that are either not universally known or agreed upon? They're kind of implementing that in Canada and a little bit in California as well. But yeah, what do you think about basically the fairness standard that's being applied?
No, I mean, I think it's totally absurd. And again, I mean, I'm pretty much a First and Second Amendment absolutist, and this is chilling that you would be fined for using, quote unquote hate speech, whatever subjective idea. It's really scary that you could be, like she was saying, like it's an act of violence, like it's some sort of crime to use language that somebody doesn't like. Sure, you can say somebody's rude. It's not this. Last I checked, this was a free country, and I'm allowed to be rude, and I'm not going to go to jail for being rude. And it's not even that. I mean, of course, there are like societal cultural implications to this, of course, but even if somebody misgender you purposefully, screw you. Like you can't, that's not a crime. Like you can't fine someone for using speech that you don't like. I mean, it's so absurd, even just at the most basic level. And then of course, there are other implications that Steven Crowder was touching on, and like how we just, how we would even legally like standardize these things. Like how many genders are there? Oh, there isn't a set amount. It's just a spectrum. It's just whatever I want. Oh, can I be a bobcat? Sure you can. Like literally that was the conversation. It was so stupid my IQ dropped. Like it was insanity. And like we're expected to just adhere to this sort of thing. And if you don't capitulate, and if you don't know all infinite number of genders, then hey, you might catch that fine, or it might be an act of violence, and you could be like that's battery or something, like that's assault. Like I don't, you'd be charged with assault for calling a woman with a shaved head she, like I don't know, like it's silly to me. It's and it's also terrifying.
Right. She also made the kind of odd distinction between somebody who intentionally refers to her as, and I'm going to refer to her as her because she was very clearly a female. Mm-hmm. But oh my gosh, act of violence! Oh my gosh. Okay, so but she was making the distinction between somebody who does it purposefully and somebody who does it unintentionally. And my question, I guess, is how do you know the difference? Because if somebody, generally, it's very difficult to know. It's difficult to know somebody's gender if it's not obvious, first of all? And so how are you supposed to set the standard? Oh, I know you did that on purpose. Well, no, I didn't do it on purpose. Well, no, I felt offended, and so therefore you did it on purpose. I mean, that standard, the standard she was trying to set, was also absurd.
How do you prove that? You know?
Yeah, they purposefully did it. I don't know how you prove that. So that's my little tangent there. But I want to bring Frank back into the conversation. What kind of like Orwellian punishments could possibly be going through these people's heads? I mean, and it comes back to the point she was making. It's not a crime. So was she trying to say that you couldn't punish it legally? Or what? I guess my haphazard question is, what kind of punishments are they looking for, if not criminal ones?
That's the question. It's if they, and she's just one example, you know, of a whole wave of opinions. But if she doesn't believe it should be a crime, or doesn't believe that quote act of violence is a crime, then how is it to be punished? And I'm guessing it would be punished. So someone like her would be wanting it to be punished either within a school system where it happened in a college setting, or punished via some kind of local, you know, entity that is not necessarily governmental. Termination of employment, or through social pressure by the person who is offended. And then other entities would be compelled to fire or whoever did the misgendering. I'm guessing that's the kind of punishment that she is looking for.
It just seems very odd to me, especially if it is this act of violence. If somebody committed an act of violence against me, for example, somebody actually robbed me in LA, and that's an actual crime, and I wanted actual like punishment for this person. If somebody actually, you know, committed an act of violence against me in that manner, that's the kind of, I want the government to step in and punish that person. So that's why it's confusing to me. It seems to minimize what an actual act of violence is by calling something like that an act of violence.
Yeah, and Frank said it earlier, and he's right. He was saying that they shouldn't even think that far ahead. Like, she was like, you know, this is an act of violence. And he's like, oh, okay, so it's a crime. And she was like, oh, no. And Frank's right, like, they don't think past their feelings. Like, they don't get ramifications into the full effect, and that's, again, like, really scary stuff. And I don't know, like, what would be the punishment? Like, you have to sit through a gender theory lecture? Like, that would be pretty effective. I would, like, never do that again. But
worse than a fine.
Like, way worse than a fine. Like, I'll just pay. I will just pay what you want. No, I think Frank made the really good point that they don't think this through. They don't think of the ramifications. They just shout out that it's an act of violence. They don't even know what that means. It means, you know, it's just all feelings. That's all it is.
Yeah, I would like to chalk it up just to hyperbole, but because of how extreme statements are, it does. Like, it raises some red flags with me, because other people that actually know what an act of violence entails and what the consequences should be for that would take advantage of somebody of, quite frankly, a lower IQ that is not thinking about what the ramifications are of what this person is saying. So my final question is on this issue is, where will this trend lead us to if the U.S. follows the lead of California and Canada and starts implementing laws to make it a crime to misgender people?
Yeah. Is that for either of us?
Either of us. We'll start with Amanda this time.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, it's again a crackdown on the First Amendment, and we're seeing this more and more and more, and it's really sad, honestly. I mean, that's a huge infringement on the First Amendment. You cannot compel somebody. You cannot compel somebody to speak. You cannot force me to call a man, you know, biting her. It's absurd. And even if I was going to do that because it's the polite thing to do or whatever, like, you can't force me to do it. Like, screw you. I can say whatever I want. I can use whatever pronouns I want. And we can have a nice cultural discussion, nice society, like, you know, on what's appropriate or, you know, what's polite or whatever. And I'm okay with that. Like, that's fine. You can have those discussions. But you look at Canada, you look at, you know, California, like, this is like legal stuff. And when they start shouting it's an act of violence, you know, there are real ramifications. It'd be a real hit to the First Amendment, which we don't need another one. So
I want to give Frank a quick chance to answer that question, but we also have our guests coming on. So Frank, where do you think this trend with the pronouns is going to lead us to in the future, as far as potential legal squabbles?
Yeah, luckily we are not Canada, you know, and we have a First Amendment that is there to protect us. So it's going to lead to multiple court cases, which will end up in either one or multiple Supreme Court cases. I think that's where this is going to end up going. So,
all right, so we've got, okay, we will open up the discussion on that a little bit more later on in the episode, but we do have Courtney Kirchoff. I'm very excited to have her on. She is the editor. I was confused. There's two different titles for you, editor at large and editor in chief. I'm not sure which one is the correct one. But she's one of those two at louderwithcrowder.com, and she's the co-host of The Morning Grinders with Not Gay Jared. And you can follow her at Courtney Scoffs on Twitter. Courtney, welcome to the Renegade Millennials. I'm so happy to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I apologize for the little bit of background noise. My internet went out at my apartment, so I am out in the middle of LA with all of the wonderful sounds. So
Starbucks. I can see it's Starbucks.
Yeah. So I'm going to have all the panel guests get to ask you questions about our discussion topics as well as me, but because it's my show, I get to go first. So first question, just exactly how many genders are there?
Froze. There, are you there? Okay, I got you.
There we go. Yeah, you're back.
What was your question? How many genders are there?
Yeah, just exactly how many genders are there? Oh my gosh, this is hate speech. I'm going to have to report you. I'm sure my local hate speech authority is standing nearby. I'll be able to.
There's only two, unless moods count, in which case, then it's on a spectrum. You could go from good mood to I'm dealing with customer service during Christmas time, and then it's infinite.
There you go.
Yeah.
So my actual question, outside of the humorous one, was what do you make of this movement to require people to conform to this multi-gendered standard? Because in Crowder video, they were really getting out in the weeds with how many genders are there? Well, there's an infinite amount of genders. Well, how do you regulate, you know, if somebody misgenders you, and how is this person supposed to know if they're even misgendering you? What's your take on all of this?
I think it's a war on traditionalism. I think the left has actively been engaged in a war against the family and against heterosexuality. So I think it's a way for them to dismantle the family even further than they already have. So when they say there's no such thing as gender, there's no such thing as sex, they're just trying to destroy every institution that they can. They've already taken down marriage, and now they're taking down gender. So that we're going to probably see the same thing happening in Australia, since they've legalized gay marriage there. They're going to go down the same path. And so yeah, it's a war against free speech, but it's worse than that. It's a war against normalcy and how we procreate. I mean, it's getting. Who knew 10 years ago that this was going to happen? But here we are.
Yeah, here we are. What do you think the end result or the end goal is for this movement of acknowledging more than two genders, or basically breaking down the societal standard for gender and the definition of gender?
I think it's fascism, and I think they're going to, as we're seeing in Canada, they're going to try to punish people if you don't think the correct way. It kind of reminds me of got a nerd moment here, a Star Trek Next Generation episode where what were they called? It's almost like that.
The
Kardashians. Yeah.
I watched the same show.
Where they're trying to convince Picard of the number of lights that there were up. And if he didn't answer the correct number of lights, even though he saw, I think there were only 4 lights, they kept telling him there were 5. And he's like, no, there are only 4. So it's conditioning to think the right way. And if you think the wrong way, even in Canada, they're going to send you to prison. So what they'll do from there, I don't know, but it's starting to get into scary stuff. It's scary territory.
Okay, so I'm gonna open it up as there's a very large dog barking. I apologize. I'm gonna open it up to the panel to ask Courtney questions, and I'm gonna let Frank go first. Frank, you can either ask Courtney a question or respond to something she said, and maybe give a follow-up question. But you're up.
Yeah, I'll respond and then ask a follow-up question. I'm thinking the means to, or the end game here is by deconstructing kind of societal norms, by deconstructing gender now, they're opening up a broader space so that subjective morality can prevail. So instead of objective things that are right or wrong, or, you know, there are gray areas, but instead of an objective moral authority, by breaking down the fabric of what was there before and pulling on those threads, we can make subjective morality the norm, and it's a lot easier to accept when nothing means anything. So I would ask Courtney if she thinks that's a similar thinks similarly to me in that regard, and that's the end game. And what do you think politicians who are promoting this on the left are doing? Is it just a power play for them, or do they actually believe in this?
So I would agree. I would say that we've kind of already seen that, people who say my truth versus your truth. Well, there is just one truth. It's not how you're feeling at the moment, because feelings change and feelings are subjective. But I think that's an interesting, I think we're going in that direction where, but there's a hierarchy. You can only, your feelings matter if your feelings are the correct feelings. So if I say, but I believe my truth is human life starts at conception, then somebody else can say, well, that's not my truth, ergo I can kill my child. I think the politicians are going to use it. I think they already are using it. Just kind of at the dawn of what it is that they're trying to do. How far it's going to go, I don't know, and I think that's why we need to fight this in the infancy stages. I don't know how far it could go legally, but imprisoning people for the wrong thing. I mean, this is 1984. It's the dystopian and society that everyone's writing about, with children fighting each other for food. I'm the Hunger Games. I'm being comedic.
Yes.
Okay, so Amanda, if you have any questions for Courtney, or if you want to respond to anything Courtney has said, you're up next.
Yeah, I'll just kind of throw out a random question. First of all, I really like all your stuff, and I found you on Twitter. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
back at you.
Old fans. But why do you? Because I've been like really trying to evaluate feminism, because I feel like you and I are kind of similar. Like we're both, in this kind of like, I guess, male-dominated field. Like we're, females and working, and I think you're single as well, like as in not married. Like, why do you reject feminism, and like and basically, what do you think we should be like promoting to young women? Because I know I was like really indoctrinated when I was younger, and I kind of like, there were a lot of lies told to me, and like now where I am now, I'm like, I would really like to tell younger women like a lot of things. What your perspective is on that? Why do you reject feminism? What do you think we should be telling young impressionable girls, like, even younger, like what message would you have?
Wow, that is a big question. So my biggest problem with the modern feminist movement right now is it's the practitioners of it, and it seems like what feminism is now is the book club on the internet. It is women complaining about the things that men do that annoy them, and then making an entire movement out of it. Whereas we used to keep these kinds of things like, oh my gosh, can you believe how often men would just kind of like patronize you and interrupt you? Well, now they've coined the term mansplaining, which, between you guys, I think is genius, because it happens, but it's like, let's not make an entire movement out of it. Let's just deal with it on our own. Men and women have been butting heads since forever. We're just different. I don't think there's a need to create this. They're just a bunch of whiners at this point. They're not doing anything constructive. They're not promoting women being successful. They're promoting women whining and trying to tear down men to be successful. And that's playground bullying 101. That in order to be successful, you have to push others down. And that's my big problem with feminism right now. I'm all for rah women. Let's go do our best, but not at the cost of men. I think we can succeed on our own and be independent and be successful without pushing them down. And that's my problem with feminism right now. So what we should be teaching young women is do what you want to do, be confident, be strong, excel, and don't make a bunch of excuses for why you failed. It's not the patriarchy that's keeping you down. It's you that's keeping you down. It's your failures. It's your inability to take account of what it is that you've done in your life. It's not this mythical patriarchy that's like meeting secretly to talk about how they're going to rape a bunch of women. It's just not what happens. I work with a bunch of men. They're not that organized, okay? They can't get that together. So nope. I think men and women need each other, and we work better together than we do warring with each other. We have differences. They complement each other. You know, you work with a bunch of men, you know how they are. And it's sometimes you need to be the buffer that facilitates conversation and communication so they don't kill each other. Mm-hmm. Insight into organization.
I want to make sure that the patriarchy is represented. So if yes, Frank wants to weigh in, and I apologize that Frank is the only guy on this panel. We did have one other who is not here, unfortunately. But Frank, is there anything you want to weigh in on the feminist discussion?
No, I mean, no. Everything that's been said is 100% correct.
That's the correct answer.
Right, yeah. I know what I'm doing.
3 girls against one.
Yeah, no, I don't have any beef with anything that was said. And with modern feminism is there's no nothing being pushed forward that is a gain. You know, there's no gains being made, being promoted. It's just let's complain. Pay for what they're allegedly doing without any kind of agenda moving forward that does anything to benefit anybody except the women who are complaining, I guess.
Well, I don't even think it's benefiting them. I think they're just being exposed as a bunch of, pardon my French, just a bunch of whiny bitches. It's like, if you want to get things done, just do it. Stop complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it benefits them for, I guess, in terms of publicity and in terms of
in their personal careers.
People love to be angry. It feels good.
Mm-hmm. Makes you feel, I don't know, empowered or justified in whatever issues you're having. But it is an interesting, I don't know, dichotomy of how the feminist movement has basically eaten itself alive because it's now just a caricature. They have become the caricature of women, you know, whining, screaming, screeching,
yes,
nagging wives or whatever it is, or ex-wives or whatever the stereotype is. Yeah. That's exactly what they've become.
Well, when James Damore of Google wrote that memo, it's like my favorite anecdote of all time. He wrote that memo and he was like, all right, listen, men and women are different. Like, women are not interested in this sort of like how you do this sort of thing at Google. Like, why don't we, you know, put it in this more personable fashion and then more women can get involved? He was trying to get more women involved in tech. So he wrote this long, like, really researched, really well thought out, like, sociological, like, memo. And then all these women were so upset by it that they, like, boycotted work. And I was just like, you just literally proved the memo. Like, it's just so fun. Like, just, hey, men and women are different. Let's embrace that. And, you know what I mean? Like, men and women are going to be different, you know, interested in different things. So this is why, like, this whole STEM push pisses me off so much. Okay, a lot of women don't give a heck about that kind of thing. They don't want to get involved in that. Stop telling them they have to. Like, if they don't want to, that's fine. And James Moore actually was doing a good thing because he was like, hey, we can open up tech to women. Let's you know, he was like offering actual changes where women would actually excel and do better because it would be more personable. It wouldn't be so hard analytics. So it's just comical to me. It's just kind of like, let's acknowledge that men and women are different. Like Courtney was saying, let's compliment each other. Let's not act like, the only difference here is like the plumbing downstairs. Let's be real.
And you know what I mean, that's the other thing. One reason I don't like the feminists is because I think they're really bad at being women. Mm-hmm. And
that's wrong thing, Courtney.
I know.
Women
I'm
are
sorry.
just like men.
Oh, it's like what the feminists are trying to do is copy men. Mm-hmm. And copy what men are doing. Well, imitation is the finest form of flattery. So by trying to copy what men have done, all they're saying is, oh, men are actually better. And now we just want to do what they're doing. Like, I don't want to do what men are doing. Okay.
Right.
Look, women have what feminists need to figure out is what the rest of us have is that, okay, I'm sorry, guys. Take your opinion of women, how smart you think they are, and multiply it times 10. Okay. So the guys are out going out to the wars. The guys are doing these dangerous jobs, and the women are like, oh, honey, I just, I can't, I'm not strong enough. Like, I can't go across the ocean and fight wars. Like, I can't do it. I'm just going to stay at home. I just think I should like, that woman is a genius. Hello.
Right. It was all just a little elaborate plan. Like, we're actually way stronger than them. We're just smarter.
Yeah, there's a comedian. She's on Netflix. Her name is the comedy is called Baby Cobra. I can't remember the comedian's name, but she's pregnant doing the comedy sketch.
Yeah, I've seen
that. She sends her husband to work, and all of her friends are like, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to be a career woman. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm telling my husband, I'm too stupid. I need to stay home and watch Ellen all day.
Right.
Come on, ladies.
Yeah.
I mean, I love having my career. I think it's great. But some of these ladies are like, look, if you wanted to go into the career world, if this is what you wanted, these are the rules. And you can't be complaining and whining if things don't go your way. That's not how most women do it anyway, but that's how the feminists do it. And then you have the beta males on the other side. Every time a feminist whines, they go, see, women really are weak. Women really can't do anything without men. You're like, oh, God. Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot.
I feel like this is just your internalized misogyny speaking, Courtney.
It totally is. I acknowledge that my privilege.
It is a joke we have at the Daily Wire office. We go around and we anytime anything anti-feminist is said, we just say, it's your internalized misogyny.
I know. Speaking. There's a lot of internalized misogyny over there.
It's a tough work environment, I can tell you, with all the internalized misogyny. So I just wanted, we kind of had this discussion at the beginning of the show, but I wanted to make sure that Courtney got a chance to comment on the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, and it kind of goes hand in hand, the two subjects, because they're both instances of kind of fascism, the forcing of somebody to do something basically at the point of a gun, because when the government gets involved, it's basically at the point of a gun, you have to do this or go to jail or pay a fine or whatever it is. So what's your take on this case? And I guess the main question I have for you is, do you think that they're going to rule in favor of the cake shop, or are we going to wake up in June or whenever they decide the case and find, oh no, fascism is the new trend in America?
So honestly, I've been out of the loop all week, having been in Texas at the studio, so I've not really been following the blow by blow of the case. I can tell you from a macro standpoint, I think a business should be able to serve or not serve whomever they want for whatever reason. That then capitalism will make a check. So if I'm a cake shop owner, if I'm a florist and I don't want to serve somebody because, I don't like their hair, it could be as stupid as that. Mm-hmm. I could get out to the marketplace and say, Courtney's flower shop, she's just a bigot. She hates people with short hair. Then the market says, okay, well, she's a crazy person. We don't want to go there. And I lose business. That's the market taking care of everything. I don't need a government to come in and find me and say, how dare you not serve this person with the Rachel haircut? That's just not fair. Even though it's not 1994 anymore, you should just kind of expand your horizons. then the market can someone else can open a flower shop and say, I'm serving people of all haircuts. Then I would go out of business. That involves government, not at all, and that's how it should be. I don't think any kind of it should be about religion or speech or whatever. If you don't want to serve someone because they're not wearing shoes, then that's your choice. How the court will decide. The problem is that if they decide in favor of the couple and say that you are compelled to serve someone regardless of your beliefs, well, two can play at that game. So after Trump won, all of a sudden it became popular for fashion designers not to serve Melania Trump. So we can play along and say, all right, well, I guess then you have to serve Melania Trump, or you have to serve Sarah Palin. You can't turn someone away because of their political beliefs. You can't turn someone away because of their religious beliefs. I don't see why we can't play the game back. And that's why I would hope that the leftist justice would look at that and go, well, this is a freedom of speech issue and power goes both ways. So that's why it matters to rule in favor of the individual.
I apologize. There's a crazy person in the parking lot. So
LA. What did you expect?
It is LA. I'm really glad I had myself muted just now. Frank, did you want to follow up with Courtney on that issue?
Yeah. I agree. It's interesting, and we were talking about this earlier before you came on. That it does cut both ways. So hopefully, I was saying that our leftist judges will recognize that and may end up siding with Phillips and the cake shop, as they'll see the potential for lack of free speech or compelled speech, being pushed their way. So yeah, I'm thinking they're going to rule in favor of the cake shop, but give up making predictions when Trump won. So.
Well, and Obamacare, that shouldn't have happened. So I mean, who knows?
Yeah. The Obamacare decision has caused me to be very nervous every time they come out and they say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make a ruling, and it looks like it's gonna go the way of the conservatives, and it's gonna be great, and we're gonna make America great again." And oh no, John Roberts flipped his vote. And then you go into depression for the next 2 months. So that's why I keep reiterating the question, because I anticipate, because the obvious answer or the obvious ruling on this case should be in favor of free speech. But what seemed to be the obvious ruling to me on Obamacare was to rule in favor of the free markets, and it was not. So that's why I'm very nervous about this whole case, because it does have serious ramifications in the future for how businesses are going to operate in the future, whether they can be forced to do things they do or don't want to do, and not even with businesses, but also with churches and any other organization, and even down to the individual. So then I'm going to let Courtney get the last word on this.
Yeah, and Stephen did a video about the going into Muslim bakeries and asking them if they would do a gay wedding cake. So we could do that, go into mosques and say, will you perform a Christian baptism, or will you bake a gay wedding cake? Will you not circumcise this woman? We can play it the other way and watch how quickly the left starts backtracking. I agree with you. I think sometimes we come down to wishful thinking when we're saying, well, I think the court's going to do that, but that's because that's what I want them to do. If we've learned anything from 2017, it's who knows. Maybe it'll be on a spectrum of some kind, and
maybe it's like sexuality, which is also a spectrum.
It totally is. I was feeling very male earlier today.
Well, it'll be the greatest moment of the history of my show to have somebody transition live on air
twice.
Yeah, it might have to be an upcoming episode also, hopefully coming in 2018. So everybody should stay tuned for the 2018 episodes.
Wait, what's coming in now?
Oh boy.
I feel like I'm an umbrella.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest episode.
That's really in right now.
Yeah,
Multiple transitions.
they're so useful, and if you open them indoors, totally bad luck.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so final part of my show is everybody has to tell me 3 of your favorite Twitter people to follow. So I'm going to shout out my 3 first are at Emily MB Butler is my manager at the Daily Wire. Definitely go give her a follow. She's great. And at Real Jacob Airy, who is also my coworker at the Daily Wire. I'm just going through the Daily Wire best list right now.
That seems like it's cheating.
Yeah, well, and then I'm also going to go for at Bandler's Banter, who no longer works for the Daily Wire, but is still a great account to follow. He works at the Jewish Journal. Definitely go and check out his articles over there. So those are my 3, and we're going to let Courtney go next with her 3 favorite Twitter sites to follow.
I didn't know this was happening. Hold on. Don't make me go next.
Yeah, I know, it's on the spot. I can come back to you. We can
come back
go
to me.
Okay, Frank, you're gonna go.
All right. I would say currently, I mean, I'm so bad at Twitter. I'm more of a Facebook guy, but
you gotta step up your game, Frank.
On Twitter, I know it's bad. I follow Hanania Naftali. I with him a while back. He's an Israeli Christian, and he's really great with anything related to Israel. I follow Dana Lash because she's pretty awesome. And Greg Gutfeld is always good for also for anything informative that you want to have a libertarian angle on.
Okay, and then Amanda, we're gonna go for you next. Give Courtney a little more time.
Yeah, I always know you ask me this, and I never prepare. I never prepare anytime. I'm just like scrolling through my Twitter right now.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh
crap!
I like Earth Pics. That's a great account. I mean, those pictures are fantastic. But I'm serious now. I like Jesse Kelly is funny as all heck. Oh, Owen Benjamin. He is a comedian. And
he's one of mine. Screw you, Amanda.
He's like my favorite person in the world. He's funny as all heck, and he's like I don't know, he's like radically right wing now, and he's like from LA, a comedian. Now he's in Oswego, so he's like a stone's throw from me in New York. So I especially like him. Good, like happily married man, good family values, and funny, really, really, really funny. So follow him.
All right, Courtney, you're on the spot.
All right. These might be obvious choices, but okay. Jordan B. Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
He's a good one. Do I need to give like an essay answer as to why?
Yeah,
you can go without saying.
You can read the names off.
Okay. Let's see. Reginald Harper. He's someone who I kind of work with. What's his Twitter handle? Crap. It's at Harper Reginald 1. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a tough one to follow. I'm not going to spell it out for you though, so you're just going to have to Google him. And Red Steez. I like following Red Steez.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Stephen Miller. He has some good singers that I kind of like. The obvious ones.
So I'm going to
I always heard about that one, The Safest Space. That's a really good one.
Oh yeah. I'm going to cheat a little bit and give one more shout out because he was supposed to be on the show and he's not here. At Marshall E. Benson. He's actually really funny. He's trying to do up his Twitter game. Definitely give him a follow and send him all kinds of hate mail for bailing out on the show today because I'm a little bit ticked off that he's not here. So that's
Did he have a good excuse or no?
He didn't have any excuse. So that's
not even common courtesy.
Right.
So we think he had a fun night. That's why. So it happens.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
We'll excuse him.
I was drunk and I couldn't plug in the right ports into my computer.
All right, so we're gonna go off the air. I want to thank everybody for coming. Thanks so much to Frank and Courtney, who are new, for coming on the show, and thanks also to Amanda, who is basically a regular. And we're gonna go off the air. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.